Welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I get to show you how to make the After the Rain throw. This throw uses 8 colors of Red Heart Super Saver yarn in rainbow colors and a pair of size 10 knitting needles. It is a free pattern available at redheart.com. I've put a link to the pattern in the video description box right below this video. And while you're down there, please smash that like button, as my kids say. Once you have the pattern and your materials, join me back here and I'll show you how to work up this very easy stitch pattern repeat, and you can get started on this blanket today. I will be demonstrating on straight needles for today's video, but you will want to use circular needles for your blanket to accommodate the number of stitches you'll be working. I have gone ahead and cast on the multiple for this stitch pattern, which is 24. And I've worked the first 3 rows of knitting. If you're doing this pattern, you should know how to cast on, you should know how to knit. So we're getting ready to step into row 4. Row 4 has us begin with a series of decreases. We will work 4 decreases and we're going to do an SSK. So we go into the first stitch as if to knit and slip it off. Go into the second stitch as if to knit and slip it off. Take your left hand needle, put it into the front leg of those 2 stitches and knit them together. You're going to do that again. And then 2 more times for a total of 4 times. We've now just worked a series of decreases, and to get the feather and fan look, we now have to work a series of increases. The designer has you work the increases by working a make one right or a make one left for this pattern. Should you choose to substitute those with yarn overs, you could do that, but I will notify you or warn you that that will cause a more lacy type stitch for your blanket. Doing it the way that Quayland suggests is going to result in a more solid fabric. To do a make one right, that's what we're going to start off with. We'll take our left hand needle. We'll take this bar, the bar right there, and we're going to scoop that bar up from back to front. Now what I want to do is I want to knit this bar through the front leg. It's going to be difficult to get into, and that's what you want, because once we knit in through that front leg, after we pick up the yarn the way we did, it's going to twist that stitch and make it virtually invisible. So once you do the make one right, you then have to knit 1. So that is 1 set, and we need 4 of those sets. So we're going to do that again. Take my left hand needle, scoop up that bar, and now I'm going to take my right hand needle and knit through that front leg, without splitting my yarn, and off. Now I have to knit 1. So that was my second set. Let's do that again. I scoop up my bar. I'm going to knit through the front leg and off and knit 1. So that makes 3 sets. I need 4 of them. Scoop up again. I try and keep that scoop up bar a little bit loose because it's easier to get into. Knit it, and then knit 1. So we just did our 4 repeats. If you happen to get off count, here's what I like to do. I will count 1, 2, 3, 4. Those were our 4 decreases. And now we have our set of 4 where it was the make 1 and then a knit 1. So there's 1, make 1, knit 1, there's 2, make 1, knit 1, there's 3, make 1, knit 1, there's 4. Now we're going to do a knit 1, make 1 left 4 times. So I knit 1 stitch. This time I'm going to scoop up that bar from the front and I'm going to knit it through the back leg. Okay, if I knit it through the front leg, I'm going to get a hole. So I want to go through the back leg oops, and knit it. So that was one set. We're going to do that again. So we knit one, scoop up that bar, knit through the back leg, and then do it again. And then one more time. There we go. We just did our repeats. So we could check it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our sets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have what should be 4 sets of our knit one, make one left. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. The next set to complete this stitch pattern repeat is to do a series of knit two together. So we're going to have 4 of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll notice at this point, your work doesn't really look like a whole lot is going on. As I look down here at my little swatch, I really can't tell a whole lot of work is going on. But I know that once this begins to grow, it's really going to get that really cool feather and fan shape. Now for this next set of instructions, the designer has made it so that there is a good chunk of stitches that are worked with the feather and fan stitch pattern, and all of the other stitches are just knitting. So we're going to have a nice section of garter stitch. Once we get past row 12, we're then going to transition into stockinette stitch. Now that's just a big fancy word to say that when we're on the wrong side, we're going to purl all of our stitches. When we're on the right side, we're going to knit all of our stitches. Throughout the entire pattern, you will work every 4th row in the feather and fan stitch pattern. That's exactly what we just did. We did our SSK for 4 repeats. We did our make one right and a knit one for 4 repeats. We did our knit one, make one left for 4 repeats, and then our knit 2 together for 4 repeats. Obviously, if you're making the blanket, you're going to have more stitches than the amount I have on my swatch, but it's going to be worked up the exact same. Should you want to add a stitch marker between each of your repeats, you absolutely could do that, and that will help you keep track along the way of where your stitches are and where you might have finished with a decrease, you need to work an increase, so on and so forth. Taking a look at this little swatch here, you can see what I mean about keeping garter stitch in this nice big section here. Mine is pink in the actual pattern, that would be the white. Then it transitions to stockinette stitch, and you will work a different color every 4 rows. And even though you're working in stockinette, it's still only that one row that has all of that feather and fan stitches happening. So it's really not a difficult stitch to do. I'm at the point now on this row that it's time to do the feather and fan stitch again. So I want to show you how it looks working up against some stockinette. It really isn't any different, but I want to make sure you know how to do it. So all I will do here is transition my work down so it's close to the tip and begin with my SSK. And I'm going to hold the yarn in my other hand now for you out there who are throwers. It's all the exact same way to create the stitches. It's just that my yarn is in a different hand. I'm still slipping the stitches as if to knit, putting my left hand needle in front of those stitches, and then working the stitches together. So I've done my 4 SSKs here, okay? So there's my 4 SSKs. Now it's time to transition into my make one right. So I scoop that bar up from the back to the front, and I'm going to knit it through the front leg, the one that's the hardest to get into. That's the one you want to use. And it is really tricky, guys. You kind of have to, I like to make the stitch a little bit loose, knit into it and off, and then knit one more. That's my first repeat. So I have to do that a total of 4 times. So I'm going to pull up, work my make one right, and then knit one, It's my second repeat. Or, yeah. Make sure you don't split the yarn. There's my third. And that's my fourth. Now it's time for me to do knit one, make one left. So I take my needle, I scoop up from the front, and I'm going to knit through the back leg this time. So that's one repeat. Knit one, make one left. There's two repeat. Knit one, make one left. That's three repeat. Knit one, make one left, and that's my 4 repeats. I should have enough stitches here to work 4 repeats of knit 2 togethers, so I will go ahead and knit 2 together all the way down. 1, 2, 3, and 4. As I mentioned, you'll have more stitches than this on your blanket. So one thing you could do at this point is grab a stitch marker, put the stitch marker on your needle, and then work the next series of 24 stitches and then put another stitch marker. It's just one way you can keep track of the stitch pattern repeat as you're working along the row. Pretty simple so far, right? When it's time to change colors, it's really as easy as dropping the old color, picking up the new color, and start working along the row. When you're working in the stockinette stitch, the first row will be purling. As you're working in the stockinette stitch section, you're also following the color sequence that's listed in the pattern. Make sure that you follow along with what color you need to change to every 4 rows for that stockinette stitch section. When it's time to go back to color A, you will also be going back to the garter stitch, feather, and fan, just like we started with. You begin with the garter stitch and you'll end with the garter stitch. When it's time to finish off your work, you simply will bind off. Now I know I'm not at a garter stitch section here, but I'm going to show you how you would bind off the stitches so that you are aware of how to do this. You'll notice I'm simply knitting 2 stitches. I'm going to take my left hand needle, go into that first stitch I knit, and have it leapfrog up and over that second stitch and off. I'm left with 1 stitch on my right hand needle. So I'll knit 1 more from my left hand needle, and I repeat that. Back stitch, jumps up and over the front stitch. And you do this all the way down the row to bind off all of those stitches on your blanket. Off there, and you'll notice your stitches are nice and bound off. Once your blanket is bound off, it's time to deal with those ends and add tassels. Now, I am not a big fan of adding knots to my knitting, but if you're going to add tassels at the end of these color changes, why not go ahead and just use those tails as part of the tassel? What I like to do when I'm working with something like this is I will go to where the color change is, and in this example, this is the orange and the yellow, and I will make a knot. And I will make sure that it's doubled. So that way when it's all done, it's not too overly tight and pulling up the side, but see how the orange is still over here along this side and the yellow is still over here at this side. Now, when I go to add my tassel, all I could do is just incorporate this yellow into the tassel. I could do the same thing with this yellow and the green and the blue. Let me show you how to do that one. Once again, I just tie them together, and because I am adding those tassels, I feel like I'm giving it extra security, so I'm okay with just adding the knots. which I never do. I never add knots to my knitting, but when it comes to something like this, it just makes sense to me. Now, if you are anti-knot, which I usually am, you can take the time and weave in your tails and just add the tassel on its own. Totally up to you. The way Quaylen wrote the pattern is he wants you to add a tassel at the end of each one of the color changes, and then you would add 3 tassels at the end of each of the big color A sections. To make tassels, it's really super easy. You're going to need the yarn that you used for the blanket, and you will cut 3 strands of yarn from each color. Then all you're going to do is match up those strands to the color that's on your blanket. So obviously we didn't use blue very much, but I'm going to incorporate the blue in one of these other sections so you can better see. I've cut these strands approximately 10 inches long, and I have folded them in half. Now I'm going to take the wrong side of the blanket here. Okay, the wrong side. I'm going to insert my hook right in the middle. I'm just going to insert it, just like right there. Why not? And then I will grab those 3 strands. See how I'm able to grab them, pull them through that fabric, and when I come back up, see I have that opening there? All I will do is pull those strands through that opening, and when I give it a tug, it places the tassel or the fringe really nice and neat with that knot on the right side, and you have some really nice fringe. It's super easy. If you don't want to add fringe to your blanket, you absolutely don't have to. Simply weave in your ends and be done with it. Now you know how to make the After the Rain blanket. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and you will come back here for more videos making you a better knitter and crocheter right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Make sure you check out some other really wonderful videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. I've picked a couple out right down there below. Be sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe so you know whenever I release a new video. You don't want to miss out on the fun. Bye guys.